Well, damn it, Sacramento Kings, you done messed around and made me a believer. 6 straight wins, including now a victory over the defending champions on their home floor without De'Aaron Fox. Doug Christie is doing something special here in Sacramento, man. And why bother making sense of it when we can just enjoy it right here on Locked On Kings?
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, and I'm a believer. I'm a believer. Cue the Smash Mouth music. If it wasn't copyrighted, I'd be playing it. I am a believer. 24 hours ago or so, I released an episode with myself and a good buddy of mine, Chris Watkins from Sacktown Sports 1140. It was a episode that was skeptical. It was an episode that still talked about some of the, I think, monsters in the Kings' closet, or some of the things that were brushed under the rug a little bit by the, at the time, 5-game win streak. And while I do believe that not everything is cured, not everything is fixed, that the Sacramento Kings will not win every single game for the rest of all time as long as Doug Christie is their head coach, I am now willingly ready to dive headfirst, full into the deep end of this team is different. Doug Christie has figured something out, and here they are with their 6th straight win, defeating the Boston Celtics 114-97. What I said there at the end of that introduction is not just me talking to all of you. This is advice for myself. Stop trying to make sense of everything. Stop trying to find the X's and O's and how the Sacramento Kings are suddenly on a 6-game win streak after literally just going on a 6-game lose streak. How the Sacramento Kings have beaten the Boston Celtics for the first time, I think, since like 2021. Stop trying to make sense of every little part of it and just enjoy and recognize what your eyes are telling you. Again, I'm speaking to myself here. The Sacramento Kings are playing way better basketball. They're playing more inspired basketball. I don't know what Doug Christie has done, whether it's on a clipboard in the film room or just as a motivational speaker during practices or in pregame before the Kings come out onto the floor or during halftime or during timeouts. I don't know what Doug Christie is doing, but he's got to keep doing it because it is working. The man is coming up with results. And we talk about the Kings playing with joy again. That was a word that Doug Christie's used. That's something that De'Aaron Fox talked about when the Kings were in the midst of their losing streak, how this team has to find a way to have fun and enjoy playing the game again. Well, it sure looks like they're having fun and enjoying themselves right now. I saw everything that I needed to see from the Sacramento Kings in this game. And that does not include the win. Right? What I wanted to see from the Kings in this game was play hard and battle. You're without your star. You're playing the defending champs. First game on a road trip, even though the Kings seem to play better on the road than they do in the Golden One Center, or at least the old version of the Kings did. The Kings, this version, seem to play well no matter where they are, whether it's a blacktop in their backyard or the TD Garden or wherever the heck they're playing. They're playing really good basketball right now. But all the circumstances coming into this game were, hey, there's a good chance you're going to lose this game, but play the same way you've been playing, right? Battle, hustle, play with intensity, start quarters strong. If you do that, but you still lose to the defending champions because they hit however many threes that they hit, or you can't stop both Tatum and Brown or whatever the circumstance, I could have lived with that. I would have been just fine with the Sacramento Kings losing this game based off the way that they played. Because I know that if the Kings play this way every night or any night, they are incredibly difficult to beat, as we can now see in the case of the Boston Celtics. Because not only did the Kings beat the Celtics, they dominated them. The second half, the Kings dominated Boston. If you didn't know anything about basketball and I showed you this game and you had no context to history, you would have said, wow, the Sacramento Kings must be the defending champions then, the way they manhandled Boston in that second half. And mind you, Boston is not as banged up as the Sacramento Kings are. This isn't the Kings beating the Dallas Mavericks without Luka and Kyrie, or the Kings beating the 76ers without Joel Embiid, or the Kings beating the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. I don't know how Brian Windhorst is going to brush this game under the rug or try and sell the Kings short on this game. The Kings beat the Boston Celtics, beat the champs in this game because of how they played, because they played the same way. Consistency is something that we've been begging for from this organization, not just the team, from this organization for a long, long time. It's a small sample size. 7 games under Doug Christie is a small sample size, but over that 7-game sample size, the Kings have been consistent with how they are playing. And that consistency is with the effort, the battle, the intensity, the energy, buying in, how the Sacramento Kings are playing. If this is what the Doug Christie era is, if this is who the Sacramento Kings are now, they are going to be difficult to beat on any given night. Doesn't mean they're going to win a title. Doesn't mean they're suddenly going to win the West. Doesn't mean they're going to make it out of the first round of the playoffs or even make it back to the playoffs. Although I have a hard time believing, if the Kings keep playing this way for the rest of the season, that they will be out of the playoffs. This is who we believe this team could be. This is who we believe this team was capable of coming into the season. And the reality is they have not played to it up to this point. They certainly wear some of the blame for that. But if Doug Christie has been able to figure out what tweaks to make and how to motivate them to play this way, and Mike Brown was not able to do that, Mike Brown has to wear responsibility for that. It's the reality of the situation. And look, I know I can already see my comment section. I know you guys are going to be talking about, Matt, you were a doubter, you were a disbeliever, you were Team Mike Brown. Boy, do you feel dumb. I'll tell you this right now. I could not be happier to be wrong. It's still not set in stone. Again, it's only 7 games, but you're not going to find me frustrated or upset that the Kings beat the Boston Celtics and are proving me wrong. You're not going to find me disappointed that Doug Christie is having success when Mike Brown couldn't or wasn't able to, even though I was firmly in Mike Brown's corner. I believe in Mike Brown, and I really appreciate Mike Brown. You're not going to find that from me. You're going to find me being just as excited as you are, just as excited as all Sacramento Kings fans should be because of how Doug Christie has gotten this team to play. The Kings came back from 3 days off and picked up right where they left off. That's a big deal because the last time the Sacramento Kings had 3 days off, you remember what happened? The Kings were on a 3-game win streak. They had a random 3 days off because of the play-in tournament, right? They were coming off of a big win against the Utah Jazz. I say big win, meaning they dominated the Utah Jazz. The next game was that loss to the Denver Nuggets that started their 6-game losing streak. So the Kings were on a 3-game win streak, had 3 days off, lost that first game, started that losing streak. And I remember saying at the end of that Utah Jazz win, man, it sucks that the Kings are having these days off. You don't want the Kings to stop their momentum, right? These 3 days off, this little mini break could actually hurt the Sacramento Kings. Lo and behold, it did. Now the first 3-day break under Doug Christie, and he's got this team playing the exact same way as they were before that break, and now looking rejuvenated and refreshed after that break, which they desperately needed, considering how many minutes their stars played. Domantas Sabonis played 50 minutes in Monday night's double overtime victory against the Miami Heat. It's another thing Doug has figured out that Mike Brown was not able to. And he deserves credit and he deserves recognition for that. But it's not just that the Sacramento Kings are playing this well and that they beat the Boston Celtics. It's how they beat the Boston Celtics. They held the Celtics to 42 points in the second half. 42 points in the second half in their own building. The Celtics shot 11 of 41, 26% from three-point range. The Celtics average 18 made threes a game. The Celtics are like the blueprint team for everybody who's saying the modern NBA basketball sucks and is unwatchable. There's too many threes. The Celtics are like the trailblazer in that sense. They are the team that throws up and puts up threes like nobody's business. They usually make 18 threes a night. They made 11. According to Will Z, the Celtics have only scored 11 or fewer, made 11 or fewer threes 4 times this season. The Kings were able to do that to them at full strength in their building in tonight's win. Will it last? I have no idea. I don't. Will the Kings lose again? Yes, they will. And I'm very interested to see what they look like after that loss, how Doug Christie can get them to respond to that loss. Granted, he's already shown a little bit of that with that first loss to the LA Lakers, but I agree with many of you that say that game shouldn't count because the Kings were just shell-shocked not just by an 0-5 homestand, but by Mike Brown being fired before even getting to the team playing, right? So that game, kind of different circumstances. The Kings will lose a game again at some point. Hopefully it's not in the near future, but the Kings will lose again, and how they respond from that and how Doug Christie gets this team to respond from that will be very interesting. But there's no reason to believe that he won't press the right buttons, say the right things, and make the right adjustments based off of what he's shown to this point, even if it's been a small sample size. What we are seeing is this team believing in themselves again because their head coach believes in them. That's been Doug Christie's message. Play hard for the city and believe in yourselves. And the Kings are doing both of those things. And Doug deserves all the praise in the world from everybody. Mike Brown lovers, haters. Mike Brown, don't even know who Mike Brown is. Casual basketball fans, national media members who claim to watch Kings basketball and talk about it on TV but actually don't. Everybody should recognize and appreciate how Doug Christie is coaching this team. Because whether it was his time on television, his time on radio, his time as an assistant coach, Doug has consistently talked about how he has unfinished business in this city. Think about it. He came this close to winning a title for the Sacramento Kings back in the early 2000s. He still feels that unfinished business. And he's on that sideline coaching as if he's still wearing number 13 and Kobe Bryant is still lining up across from him and he's trying to stop Kobe from scoring. Doug gets it. And he's gotten this team to get it. And regardless of if it'll last, regardless of if it makes sense, it's happening. And it's clearly what the Kings needed. He's been able to bring it. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time. If you're like me, you love going to live events, whether it's a Kings basketball game, any sporting event, a theatrical production. I'm a big Broadway guy, musical guy. I love when they come through town. If it's a concert, whether it's a massive stadium concert or something on a smaller venue, maybe you want to go to your local comedy club and just laugh until your side hurts, right? All of these events you can go to, you can now get the best price tickets you're going to find on Game Time. They have a Game Time Picks feature that is so simple but super effective. The feature filters out all of the fluff to show you only the best deals on tickets for that event. It helps you save time because time is important to Game Time. It's not just in their name, because the closer you actually get to the event, the better deals you're going to find on Game Time. Plus, their all-in pricing feature, it's so simple and yet wonderful for those of you who are like me and buy a lot of tickets online. The price you see at the beginning when you select your seats or select your tickets, that's the price you pay. No hidden fees at the end that bombard you and make you have second thoughts. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor's visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. You complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription as early as today. Visit RocketRx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off of your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's RocketRx.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions do apply. RocketRx. Better sex made simple. You know what I haven't done for a while? In fact, I haven't done it really at all this season. And shame on me. I haven't been obnoxious about Domantas Sabonis lately. Remember last season? I feel like every single game, every single podcast, I was gushing about something Domantas Sabonis did, mainly because I had to be the loudest voice out there when talking about Domantas Sabonis, because every time anyone would talk about Domas, it would come with an asterisk or a but, or he's not worth this, or he's not good enough at this, or look what he did in the Warriors series, blah, 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 blah. Well, the haters are running out of things to be upset or not like about Domantas Sabonis, and I'm ready to be obnoxious about him again tonight. Following a triple-double and outplaying Bam Adebayo for the second time this season, when so many people, including my partners here on this Locked On Podcast Network, said Bam Adebayo is a way better center than Domantas Sabonis, laughed at the idea of Domas over Bam. Domas outplays Bam. Kings 2-0 against Bam in the Heat, including Domas hitting a game winner in Miami earlier on this season. He follows that up with history tonight. More history for Domantas Sabonis. 23 points, 28 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block. The 28 rebounds is both a career high for Domas, previously was 26, which also had tied the Sacramento Kings era record for rebounds in a game. Well, he broke that record tonight. Domantas Sabonis now stands alone in the Sacramento era of this franchise. Nobody has grabbed more rebounds in a game now than Domantas Sabonis has. He's scoring. He's shooting over 45% from three-point range. He was 3 of 4 from 3 tonight. He's blocking shots. He's got 6 blocks in his last 4 games. He's protecting the rim. And he's still right at the top in rebounding. He's number 2, although very, very close to number 1, especially after last night's performance. And he's still leading the league in double-doubles like he's done the last couple of seasons. He's doing the same stuff he's been doing, dominating in the same areas. But now he's scoring. He's hitting open shots. He's protecting the rim. Still making history. What more is there to show you? What more do you need to see? Again, you can say, I need to see it in the playoffs, and that's the only card you have left to play, so you better hold on to that card tight, because if the Kings and Domas get back to the playoffs, he's going to rip that card to shreds, and then you'll have nothing left but to acknowledge him like he's Roman Reigns. Domas has been fantastic and continues to be fantastic, and it hasn't been talked about enough because the Sacramento Kings have not been winning basketball games. While Domas certainly is responsible for some of that, he doesn't get a pass, just like none of the players get a pass for the Kings losing games. He's still been putting up amazing numbers. And he's 9th in the NBA as of right now in All-Star voting. Now, I know All-Star voting is a popularity contest. Kings almost never have any of their All-Stars voted in. We know why, right? But he's behind in the All-Star voting right now. He's behind Alperen Şengün, who's having a great season, and the Houston Rockets are one of the best stories in the league this year. I understand it. He's behind Anthony Davis, who is 4-0 against Domas this year. He's behind Victor Wembanyama, who, it's Wemby. And he's behind Nikola Jokic, who it's Jokic. So I get it. I get why he's there in those standings. And I understand the amount of talented players in the front court in the Western Conference is ridiculous. It's nuts. That didn't even include like the Kevin Durant's and the other forwards in the West, LeBron James, that he has to deal with in terms of all-star voting. I get it. I'm just saying this. NBA, don't embarrass yourselves again. If Domas keeps this up, I know the Sacramento Kings haven't been winning games. They are now, but they haven't been winning games this season. That doesn't take away from Domas once again being right back at the top in so many different metrics and improving again. I didn't know it was possible for Domas to improve on what he's done the last couple of seasons. He's doing it. Individually, he is doing it. All-Stars, the All-Star Award or All-Star recognition honors your individual accomplishments. This is not MVP. The Kings don't have to be a 50-win team or be on a pace to win 50 games or be number one in the West for Domas to be an all-star. He's playing like one. So don't screw up again, NBA. Put him in the all-star game where he belongs. Now let's talk about another Kings star who did not play, De'Aaron Fox. I think it's easy to do, and I don't necessarily think people are doing with any kind of negativity towards Fox or any malicious intent or anything like that. But I know some Kings fans are going to look at this win, look at a 3-game win streak now without De'Aaron Fox, and go, the Kings are playing better without him. The Kings might not need De'Aaron Fox. Hey, trade De'Aaron Fox and go get more pieces and more depth and put him around Monk and all these other guys, and look at the Kings go. It's easy to do that. I understand. It's easy to do that. Here's what I'll say. Kings fans, you should be thrilled and inspired that the Kings are playing this well without their star. But you also should be excited as hell because they can play even better when he comes back. There's no reason to believe that De'Aaron Fox coming back should have any kind of impact on how hard the Kings are playing right now. Right? De'Aaron Fox coming back does not mean that Keegan Murray's all of a sudden going to miss shots. And he was fantastic tonight, by the way. De'Aaron Fox coming back doesn't mean that all of a sudden Keon Ellis isn't going to play hard or Devin Carter's going to play hard. Isn't going to play hard. We can talk about the minutes that they're going to play, and we'll get into that conversation here in just a little bit. But De'Aaron Fox coming back is not a bad thing by any means for the Sacramento Kings. You can still feel confident or still feel relieved that when it comes to negotiations with Fox, and if things don't go the Kings' way, and if Fox decides he wants out, or if the Kings can't come to a deal, or whatever the circumstances, that they won't be completely screwed by Fox leaving. You can feel that way with the success that they're having right now. But I'll tell you how you should look at this. I'll tell you how you should feel about the Kings' backcourt and how set or secure the Kings are at that guard position. I'll talk about that more. Plus, a standings update. And Monte McNair spoke for the first time since Mike Brown was fired. He didn't say anything, but I have for you what he did say. All still to come here on Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Ultimate GM. And I want to take a moment to introduce you to the brand new mobile game that I'm addicted to. I'm playing it too much. It's starting to annoy my wife at this point. Ultimate College Basketball Head Coach. If you've ever dreamed of being the head coach or being at the helm of a college basketball program, this is your chance to step into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball Head Coach, you control every detail of your program, from recruiting players to hiring coaching staff, overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals, and managing scholarships. It's all right there in your hands. And when it comes to game time, you get to draw up offensive plays, set your strategy. The way you play won't just affect your current season. It will shape the future of your school's basketball program. It's a game that lets you feel the full weight of what it means to be a head coach at a college program and lead your team to glory. There's a special offer right now for Locked On NBA and Locked On Kings listeners. Use promo code Locked On CBB, all caps, inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. Again, download Ultimate College Basketball Head Coach. You can visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Basketball Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. So I'm not trying to tell you how you should feel, but allow me to hopefully influence you in a positive way about the future of the Sacramento Kings and their backcourt. Malik Monk tonight, he's been fantastic over these last 3 games, taking over as a facilitator and primary ball handler and primary playmaker for the Kings with De'Aaron Fox being out. 22 points, 8 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, just 1 turnover tonight. Devin Carter, he looks like exactly what the doctor ordered for this team, exactly what this Kings team has needed. Tonight, 11 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point range, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, plus all the defensive things that he does that doesn't show up in a box score. Then you have Keon Ellis, who's just undeniable, right? Keon Ellis is undeniable. There is no argument against Keon Ellis getting significant minutes for the Sacramento Kings. There's no argument. The most important stat that I can read for you. In fact, I'll start with this. Let me start with the numbers that he had tonight. In 23 minutes, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Multiple steal games and at least a block or multiple block games is just par for the course for Keon at this point. But the most important stat, the number that matters most in any conversation is what? Winning. Wins and losses. Those are the most important numbers. And Keon Ellis, in his career, when he has started for the Sacramento Kings, including the 2 play-in tournament games that the Kings played last year, the win against the Warriors in Sacramento, the loss in New Orleans against the Pelicans. Keon Ellis is 21-11 as a starter. 10 more wins, 10 games over 500 as a starter. And what's even more important, and you need to understand this and keep this in mind, this is not Keon Ellis starting with the best of the best. Keon Ellis starts when the Kings are dealing with an injury. Keon Ellis got a lot of starts at the end of last season when Malik Monk was out with injury. Keon Ellis first got his starts when De'Aaron Fox was out with injury. So not only is Keon Ellis 10 games over 500 as a starter with the Sacramento Kings, Keon Ellis is 10 games over 500 filling in for one of the stars or one of the best players or one of the most important players on this Kings roster, which makes it even more impressive. Keon Ellis is stepping into a role while the Kings are shorthanded and finding a way to win at a high level. He has a 7-game win streak. When his first 7 games as a starter with the Kings, he won all 7 of them. And now he's won the last 5 straight games as a starter for Doug Christie. He's undeniable, man. He's undeniable. When De'Aaron Fox comes back, I do believe that Keon Ellis falls out of the starting lineup. Which you might go, Matt, what the hell? You just laid out how great he is and how great the Sacramento Kings have played with him as a starter. It's no matter what, it's going to be a tough decision for Doug Christie to make. It makes the most sense, right? De'Aaron Fox is going to start when he comes back. And I don't think you're moving Malik Monk out based off of how Monk has played. At least I could be wrong, but knowing Doug Christie, I don't think that's the move you're making. So Keon Ellis is coming off the bench. Now, here's the good thing about Keon. You can plug him into any lineup, any game situation, anytime, and he can impact the game for the better. He can play with anybody, and he can be impactful with anybody, which makes him even more valuable. But here's what we cannot question anymore. Outside of your core 5, which in that case would be the starting 5 of Fox, Monk, DeRozan, Murray, and Sabonis, outside of those 5, nobody should be getting more minutes than Keon Ellis. Nobody. He's your 6th man. If you don't start him, he's your 6th man. 100%. Keon Ellis' minutes should never be in question anymore. And if that truly was the biggest blemish, or the biggest, that's not a good analogy, I won't use that, what was in my head. If he ends up being the biggest blemish on the resume of Mike Brown, and the biggest nail in Mike Brown's coffin for why he was no longer, or why he got fired and lost his job as the Kings, so be it. Because Keon Ellis deserves to play. So I think he falls out of the starting lineup. But his minutes, where do the minutes come from? He's going to play the most minutes. I think Devin Carter has to play. I don't know if Kevin Huerter's getting any more minutes with this team when they're fully healthy. I don't. You got to take the minutes from somewhere. I don't know. Again, I don't know how Kevin Huerter plays more than a handful of minutes on a nightly basis. I just don't see it. Keon has to play. I think Devin Carter has to play. In terms of a closing lineup, where does Keon Ellis fit into that? Does Keon Ellis have to be on the floor at the end of a close game? Well, he's playing like right now he should be. Who does he replace in a closing lineup scenario? I think he most threatens Malik Monk. Maybe DeMar DeRozan, although I don't believe the Sacramento Kings would take DeMar DeRozan out of the game, even though De'Aaron Fox takes more of that primary scorer, closer role than DeMar does. DeMar's taken over and embraced that with De'Aaron Fox being out. And, of course, having both of them on the floor gives you multiple different weapons. But I can make an argument for why you don't need DeMar as much offensively as you need Keon defensively because you have De'Aaron Fox. I can also make the same exact argument for why you don't need Malik Monk's playmaking as much as you need Keon Ellis' defense I guess Keegan Murray might be a wild card to throw in there at the end, but I don't think Keegan Murray's getting taken out because of the size issue and how short you would be or small you would be with Keon Ellis being out there. So that's another thing that Doug Christie has to figure out is if Keon's not a starter, is he a closer? And if he's a closer, who is not a closer? And I don't envy Doug in that position, even if it's quote-unquote a good position to be in. But regardless, even if I don't have the answers to those questions, I know for a fact that Keon Ellis deserves to be playing big minutes. So what does that mean? That means that you have a 4-man backcourt rotation that, assuming you can get De'Aaron Fox to stick around long-term, or even if it's just for the remainder of the season or whatever the case, you don't got to worry about your backcourt. You don't. You've got Fox and Monk, who are primarily scorers and playmakers and facilitators. And then you got Keon and Devin Carter that rebound, play defense, hustle, guys that you can just unleash at any point in the game, whether they're starting, closing, off the bench, who cares? Throw them out there, unleash them, and exhaust your opponent. It's not a perfect backcourt because there are obviously better players out there, but it is a ideal backcourt to have. You're solidified. For as long as those 4 are here, your backcourt is solidified. And now you just focus on adding more forward depth, more wing depth, more size, maybe a little more rim protection. But your backcourt is set with those 4 guys. And I look forward to seeing that when De'Aaron Fox comes back. Quick standings update for you. If you're having fun, you're going to have even more fun. The Sacramento Kings, as of now, are in 9th place. They went from 12th to 9th over the course of a week and some change. They are tied with the Golden State Warriors in 9th/10th. Technically, the Warriors lost today, but they have the tiebreaker early on against Golden State because they've beaten them once. They still have to play 3 more times. The Kings are a game and a half back of 7th and 8th. They are 2 games back of 6th. And they are 3 games back of, as of now, at the time of this recording, 4th and 5th, although it's only going to be 5th because the Denver Nuggets are in 4th, and last I checked, they were beating the crap out of the Brooklyn Nets. So they're going to win, so they'll be further back of 4th. But still, 3 games back of 5th at the time of this recording. If this win streak can continue, who knows? Who knows where the Kings are going to be by the time the trade deadline gets closer and closer. Last thing for you. Even if we're all riding high about this Doug Christie thing, and not to make it more about Mike Brown, but I think this is important to talk about. Monte McNair, Kings general manager, spoke for the first time publicly since Mike Brown was fired. He did an interview before this game started. He sat down with Mark Jones, Sacramento Kings broadcaster, and they aired it before the game started. The interview was, I think, 15 or so minutes, something like that. Here's the extent of what he talked about when it comes to Mike Brown and the decision to fire him.
Last thing, just about Doug. What kind of organizational support do you throw behind him in terms of him getting thrown into a situation like this? I mean, he's a pro and he's a former player, he's familiar with the locker room, but what does it look like when you guys are supporting him and you guys are all aligned?
Yeah, I would say first I want to say how much we appreciate Mike and everything that he did for this organization and breaking the playoff drought. I have the utmost respect for him, and obviously a tough decision when that time came. But at the same time, you know, now Doug is the interim head coach, and it's our job to continue to support him and get him the support he needs for those players. And, you know, for him, he brings what he brings to the table, and he's got to be himself. And, you know, right now I think the guys are really responding to that.
So he said nothing. It's almost copied and pasted from the 2 lines that Mike got in the press release that the Kings put out after the Kings fired him, and especially after the Kings fired him the way that they did. Now, I'm not trying to kill the mood or bring down the mood of this podcast because Kings are moving on. Kings are playing great. Here's what I'll say. This does not excuse the Kings not having a press conference. There are still questions to be asked of Monty. Big questions to be asked. And I think it's a really, really, really bad look that the Sacramento Kings have not made Monty available for questions or to comment in front of Kings media and to answer questions that need to be asked, even if the team is playing as well as they are. He can't hide. The Kings cannot hide behind Doug Christie's success, nor can they put out this interview with a team broadcaster, a team employee, and call it good. I don't know what I wanted or expected Monty to say. I don't even think I care that much about what Monty has to say. I more care about the Kings owning the decision. And I still don't think they've owned it. Even if they're being proven right. Even if Doug Christie is shining right now and the Kings are playing better basketball, they look right. They look correct, which is crazy to me. But they do. But they still haven't addressed it the way that they should address it. The only reason I'm talking about it in this podcast is because the interview was today. If it wasn't, I wouldn't talk about it. And I saved it for the end of the podcast so y'all wouldn't yell at me. It's a fun day. A 6-game win streak. Kings are balling. They got the Chicago Bulls on Sunday, the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday to round out this 3-game road trip. Hopefully the Kings can keep this win streak going. Now I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on, you got to be feeling it, right? You're riding high on the vibes. Hit me up. Talk to me about it. At MattGeorgeSack on Twitter or Blue Sky. Email me, MattGeorgeSports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below if you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of the Locked On Kings podcast. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.